Hello everyone, my name is Shreyas R. Kumar and I'm studying in Sri Venkateswara College of Engineering. I'm currently in the third semester under Department of Data Science and today my topic is protection, goals, principles, domain of protection and access metrics. Now let's begin with an introduction to protection in computing. Protection in computing refers to safeguarding systems and data from unauthorized access, disclosure, alteration or destruction. The goal of protection mechanisms is to ensure that only authorized users can access resources and that data remains confidential. Integrity is maintained and availability is guaranteed. Protection mechanisms are implemented to principles, domains, and access control matrices. Now, let's see the goals of protection. The primary goal of protection is to enforce a policy that determines who can access that resource, what resources, under what circumstances. Protection aims to prevent unauthorized users from accessing sensitive information or performing actions beyond their privileges. Protection also seeks to maintain the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data and resources. Goals of information security. The common thread among good information security objectives is that they address all three core security principles. The three security principles are confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality stands for preventing unauthorized disclosure of systems and information. Integrity stands for preventing unauthorized modification of systems and information. And availability stands for preventing disruption of service and productivity. Now let's see the principles of protection. Principle of least privilege. Users should only have access to the resources and privileges necessary for their tasks, minimizing the potential impact of a security breach. Principle of fail-safe defaults. Access should be denied by default, requiring explicit permission for access to resources. Principle of open design. Protection mechanisms should rely on secrecy, but rather on well-defined and openly documented security policies. What is principle of least privilege? Let's see that in detail. The principle of least privilege (POLP) states a given user account should have the exact access rights necessary to execute their roles responsibilities with no more or no less. POLP is a fundamental concept within identity and access management (IAM). Now let's see the POLP best practices. Make least privilege model the default for all accounts. Elevate privileges on a situational and timed basis only. Monitor and track all network activity. Adopt a flexible access management platform so that privileged credentials can be securely elevated and easily downgraded. Identify and separate high level from low level system functions. Audit privileges granted to users and applications regularly. Now let's see some benefits offered by POLP. It creates an environment with fewer liabilities. It limits the possibility of data breaches. It protects against common attacks like SQL injections. Data classification promotes a healthy network. Superiority data security and audit capabilities. Now let's see the domain of protection. Protection domains define a boundary within which access rights are enforced and isolation is maintained. Each domain represents a set of resources and processes that share a common level of protection and access control. Domains help in compartmentalizing the system and reducing the impact of security breaches within a specific domain. Now let's see what are access matrix is? An access matrix is a formal representation of the rights and permissions that specify the interactions between subjects, users or processes, and objects resources. The rows of the access matrix represent subjects, while the columns represent objects, and the cells indicate the permissions or access rights. Access matrices can be used to define and enforce access control policies based on principle of least privilege. We can see the depiction of access matrix in the given picture. Now let's see the type of access control. Discretionary access control, also known as DAC. In this, users have control over the access permissions of resources they own, allowing for more flexibility but also potential security risks. Mandatory access control, also known as MAC. In this, access rights are determined by the system administrator based on security labels and policies, providing a higher level of security but less flexibility. Role based access control. In this, access is granted based on the roles of responsibilities of users, simplifying administration and ensuring consistency in access control. It is also called as RBAC. Now let's see what access control models are. Access control lists. Lists associated with each resource specifying the user or groups and their corresponding access permissions. Capability based security. Each user or process is assigned a unique capability that grants access to specific resources, enhancing security and flexibility. Role based access control. Access is determined based on predefined roles, simplifying administration and ensuring consistent access control policies. We can see access control model depiction in the following picture. Now let's see what access control enforcement is. Access control enforcement mechanisms include authentication, authorization, and audit. Authentication verifies the identity of users before granting access to resources. Authorization determines whether a user has the necessary permissions to access a resource based on the access control policies. We can see the example of access control enforcement in the following figure. Now, let's see the challenges in protection. Some of the challenges in protection are balancing security and usability, insider threats, and evolving threats. Firstly, let's see about balancing security and usability, implementing strong protection mechanisms without hindering user productivity. Next, insider threats. Unauthorized access by legitimate users poses a significant risk to system security. And lastly, evolving threats. Adapting protection mechanisms to address new and emerging security threats and vulnerabilities. In conclusion, I would like to say this. Protection is essential for ensuring the security and integrity of systems and data. By understanding the goals, principles, domains, and access control mechanisms, organizations can effectively protect their assets from unauthorized access and misuse. Continuous monitoring, updates, and adherence to best practices are critical in maintaining a robust protection framework. Thank you. If you have enjoyed watching this video, please like and share it. And if you want to watch more content like this, subscribe to the channel.